We divorce ourselves from our heart and begin to live a double or separated life. Frederick Buechner expresses this phenomena in his biographical work, Telling Secrets. And he says this: our original shimmering self, I love that term. Our original shimmering self gets buried so deep we hardly live out of it at all. Rather, we learn to live out of all the other selves, which we are constantly putting on and taking off like coats and hats against the world's weather. On the outside, there is the external story of our lives. This is the life everyone sees. Our life of work and play and church, of family and friends, paying bills and growing older. Our external story is where we carve out the identity most others know. It is the place where we have learned to label each other in a way that implies we have reached our final destination. Bob is an accountant. Mary works for the government. Ted is an attorney. The Smiths are the family with the well-kept lawn and the lovely children. The Joneses are that family whose children are always in trouble. Here, busyness substitutes for meaning. Efficiency substitutes for creativity. And functional relationships substitute for love. In the outer life we live from ought, I ought to do this, rather than from desire, I want to do this. And management substitutes for mystery. Ooh, it's a good line. That is a good line. Management substitutes for mystery. There are 3 steps to a happy marriage, 5 ways to improve your portfolio, and 7 habits for success. There is a spiritual dimension to this external world in our desire to do good works, but communion with God is replaced by activity for God. There is little time in this outer world for deep questions. Given the right plan, everything in life can be managed, except your heart. You want some more? Yeah. All right. Let's do a little more. Instead of a love affair with God, your life begins to feel more like a series of repetitive behaviors, like reading the same chapter of a book or writing the same novel reading the same novel over and over again. The orthodoxy we try to live out, defined as believe and behave accordingly, is not sufficient storyline to satisfy whatever turmoil and longing our heart is trying to tell us about. Somehow our head and our heart are on separate journeys, and neither feels like life. Eventually, this division of head and heart culminates in one of 2 directions. We can either deaden our heart or divide our life into 2 parts, where our outer story becomes the theater of the should and our inner story the theater of needs, the place where we quench the thirst of our heart with whatever water is available. I chose the second route, living what I thought of as my religious life with increasing dryness and cynicism, while I found water where I could, in sexual fantasies, alcohol, the next dinner out, late night violence videos, gaining more knowledge through religious seminars, whatever would slake the thirsty restlessness inside. Whichever path we choose, heart deadness or heart and head separation, the arrows win and we lose heart. The arrows win and we lose heart. The arrows win and we lose heart. The problem is, most of us this morning, to greater or lesser degrees, have lost pieces, if not all, of our heart, where we actually, if we were honest, we would have to admit we live very little of the time from our heart. Very little. I want to say 2 things and I'm going to close. And they will be fast, as in 30 minutes. The 2 things are, the first one is most people have lost their hearts. I said this, let me tell a quick story. I I had all these really strange questions for, there's a really strange man that I met, and his name, which you'll think the name is weird too, his name is Makiwo. And he's a Native American guy from San Ynez, from the San Ynez Indian Reservation. And he is the senior spiritual elder for the entire nation. So he's a heavyweight in their culture, spiritually, he's a heavyweight. So I had some questions about this place where I hike, and I went to go ask him some questions. And I called in for an appointment, because you have to have an appointment with these people. You don't just go and see them. So I called in for an appointment, and he happened to be coming to Malibu to do this dance. And so I went to go see him at this dance. So I was asking around when I get to this dance. I said, where is Mahiwa? And they said, oh, he's over there with all those people. And I said, okay. So I walk over there, and I get about 10 feet away from him, and there's about 7 or 8 big Native American dudes sitting around him. And I go to walk up to talk to him, and they all get up to their feet, and they all stand between me and him like this. And they're like, what do you want? And I said, oh, I'm here to talk to the elder. And they said, what's your name? You have an appointment? And I said, yeah, I got an appointment. And so he hears me call up. I said my name, and this guy hears my name, and he goes, oh, yeah, hey, come on over. Well, let's talk. So I go over there, and we talked about a lot of interesting things, which I won't go into. But one of the things that I said to him, I said, yeah, I said, it must be painful for you having lost through religious systems. Primarily the system that oppressed these people was the Catholic, or we could just call it the Christian system. They destroyed their culture. And I said, that must be painful for you, having lost the songs, having lost the dances, having lost all these things. And he gets a slight smile on the side of his face, and he said something cool. He goes, listen, he goes, those things that you mention are eternal. And because they're eternal, they may have been lost, but they always can be found. Our hearts, in part or in total, may have been lost, and they might be lost as we sit here this morning. Because they're eternal, we can get them back. I believe all of it while here on earth. We can get it back while here. Because they may be under lock and key, they may be under dungeon, they may have weird demons guarding them. We may be opposed on 10,000 sides, but you know what? The kingdom of heaven suffers violence, but the violent seize it by force. If you think this is going to be rolled out like a scroll for you and it's not going to come without a fight, you're dead wrong, and you might as well hang it up now. If you want your inheritance, which is what this is, you better fix for a fight. Because the enemy has come to steal, kill, and destroy that very thing. And that's why most of us are in the tweaked state we are this morning, because this has been stolen, this has been lied to, this has been destroyed, and if we're going to get it back, we better gear up for a fight. We better gear up for a fight. And most of you who've been doing some work to retrieve what's been lost, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're throwing blows. And you realize that as you're throwing blows, you're getting kicked.